Is it enough that they just sound really good? This episode of Some Gadget Guy is brought to you by viewers like you. A huge thank you to all the people who share content on social media and the incredible generosity of my patrons. Patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. More info on those awesome nerds later in the video. The folks at Edifier sent these my way to take on a test drive and share some thoughts. The Stax S5, a premium planar magnetic headphone that works wirelessly or wired. And I'm a total nerd for planar headphones. Just recently reviewed a great gaming headset from Odyssey, and now Edifier is here with an upscale solution. I need a better prop wrangler. The Stax S5 seemed like an iteration on the S3, refining and tweaking and arriving at a higher price point. Maybe like an S3 Plus, if you will. Construction is simple and straightforward. They look like black plastic cans because they are. I don't know that many people would identify that they're as expensive as they are. They don't make a statement about your bank account, but the fit is comfy. Now, planars can wear kinda heavy, and the headband does a better job of spreading that out than on the Maxwell that we recently reviewed. Telescoping arms and hinges on the cans thankfully have very little creak or self-noise. Moving my head and my jaw around, they're quieter than my current travel options, the Sony XM4. Quieter than the XM4 while still being a collapsible headphone. That's pretty good, where the hinges don't contribute a lot to the noise. They look inexpensive, but they are not cheap. Now, on the tech side, I love the connection options. We've got wired for a 3.5mm headset jack. This still requires the unit to be powered on. Planar drivers can be a little thirsty, and we can't always count on consumers to have DACs and amps that can drive these well. Because techies gave up on good features like the LG Quad DAC in our phones, which was a terrible loss. You can also connect directly over USB-C. If you plug them into a laptop, tablet, a full computer, and you can send that high-res audio directly over a cable. And of course, the Bluetooth, and a Swiss Army knife of options for Bluetooth 5.4. These are Snapdragon Sound badged cans with support for the newest aptX adaptive and aptX lossless codecs. But along for the ride, we also get LDAC and LHDC. There's every current connection option for Bluetooth that can rival CD quality audio. I just feel bad for iPhone owners that Apple won't let you play with gear like this, because I mean, those iPhones are so expensive. Couldn't help a little bit of snark there. Multi-point is on tap. You can connect to 2 devices, but that will shut off LDAC and LHDC when the headphone is watching 2 different audio sources, and you can swap to a Qualcomm game mode if you need to reduce latency. Even though these cans are a bit thirsty, the battery life is exceptional. Edifier rates this for around 80 hours on AAC, but listening mostly on LDAC at moderate volume, I never got close to really challenging this battery life. Especially switching between wired and wireless playback, that was plenty to keep them charged and ready. So even for taking a hit on using a higher data rate codec, you'd be able to drive these for days before you'd need to plug them in. The tech is on point. The claims here are wireless, portable, premium audiophile with a price tag to match. The most important question: how do they sound? They sound great. I love how planar magnetic drivers handle detail and articulation, and I think Edifier is balancing a delicate mix of analytical performance with a tuning that folks will generally enjoy. These are fun, but they don't shy away from the advantages of planar hardware, and that means there's so much edge to play with. The shapes are fun here, especially the more tremor, vibrato, or distortion you want to throw at them. A really good dynamic driver headphone can sound amazing, especially in this price tier. But a planar just hits different. And if you're not familiar with one, it's a novel experience. You hear a slightly different reproduction of music than what you're familiar with, and you might catch details and nuance that you haven't heard in your favorite tracks before. A lot of tech reviewers that I read tend to write this off as simply an aspect of tuning. Like, oh, they're just putting on more high EQ. But the literal physical generation of force that a driver is designed to deliver will change how that sound is created and how it hits your ear. It's not as simple as just messing with the EQ. And I like to catch it on things like rock. From old school rock and roll to more modern alternative tracks, we often do this thing to bass guitars, where they get mixed under a lead or even a rhythm guitar, and then we lean on the bass drum to deliver more thump. But I like how a planar can sometimes find a bit more room for that underappreciated bass to peek through. Like the upright bass on JD McPherson has a bit more presence in a mix that really shows off the rhythm guitar more directly. It fleshes out a great old school style rock and roll track. Or the song Movies from Alien Ant Farm. With what little bass guitar I can actually play, it's one of my favorite bass lines, but on a less capable headphone, that bass just gets lost behind the distortion on the guitar. And that's a shame because it's a playful little bass line. Or really, how sad would it be if you couldn't clearly hear Nathan East's work on Lose Yourself to Dance? The drum and bass foundation is delicious on that Daft Punk track. Very broadly, and it's a bit more complicated than the way that I'm gonna describe it here, but planars tend towards less bass saturation, in my opinion. There's this wonderful bed, these crisp attacks in the lows, but the attack tends to be just a touch more important than the sustain or the decay. And I think Edifier is playing with this well. You can make them bolder with some EQ tweaks, but from a consumer and entertainment perspective, I really like what these can do out of the box. And then the driver just opens up in such a fun way on overly busy or aggressive pop tracks. Like I use OK Go's WTF as my main torture test, and the cans refrain from making the highs shrill. The highs are still aggressive, if just a touch recessed, and there's tons of room in the mids for all the distortion and electronic elements. Where I just had so much fun with We Used to Be Friends by the Dandy Warhols. I'm overdue a rewatch of the first season of Veronica Mars. That song is all over the place in sound design elements, and it can be a cacophony on bad speakers. The Edifiers just drive it, especially the more playful, elastic, and warping effects. It's really fun presentation. I'm not usually an error or sparkle guy. I feel there could be just a touch of a lift in the sparkle when I fire up a female singer-songwriter like a Linda Ronstadt or a Dolly Parton. You're likely to catch just a bit more of the room and the reverb that's around them, and sometimes that can make them feel a little farther away. Emotionally, that can still be interesting, but we're just talking about minor tweaks though, and that's an easy lift in the EQ settings in the Edifier app. Myself personally, I just can't pin down a universal EQ that can take all of that into account. Like if I do a lift for female singers, that might exacerbate other tracks or like sibilance on another singer. But these took a little longer to review because I would often find myself just getting lost in the audio, where I'd stop critically listening to the headphone performance and I'd kind of just go on the ride with the music that I love. Now, I feel we should address some of the other reviews that I've caught, because I've heard some criticisms, like the Stax, they just aren't loud enough. I take hearing health very seriously, and even though I'm old, and my ears are kind of blown out from partying in my teens, I've taken time to train myself to listen quieter. On the Stax, I'm around 2/3 of the total output for a comfortable listening volume for me, and even that can be a touch too loud on some of the more aggressive or brick-walled pop tracks. I don't know how much I would trust the audio quality assessment of someone saying they turned these all the way up and boy, they just weren't loud enough. Those are some busted ears. Now, the Stax won't get as loud as my Sonys, but I don't think that's the point. And that level of audio concussive force driving right into your eardrum, that's pretty intense. Which does bring us to the main compromise for a portable audio device in the year 2024. There is no active noise cancellation, and that makes the recommendation a little more specific than an all-rounder travel can. An important part of embracing audiophile, embracing the concept, is just considering the whole listening chain. It's not just owning the mostest expensive headphones. You start considering the quality of signal, the quality of data, the DAC, the amp, the headphone technologies and tuning, and your entire listening environment. You can put the best speakers in the world in a terrible location. That's not audiophile. And I think that's one of the last parts that consumers overlook when they start to buy up the food chain. I have brilliant open-ear headphones. They sound amazing, and I can't use them during the day with all the distractions and noises in my environment. I'm encouraged by seeing more consumer options for closed back planar magnetic headphones. It reduces some of the naturalness in the presentation. They aren't as open or as natural as open back cans. These still have a reasonably wide space in presentation. They're good for closed back. Again, like the Odyssey Maxwell, a good closed back can brings a decent amount of passive noise reduction. They literally just shield the ear from your environment. That's really good for daily lifestyle listening, working in an office, if you're sitting in a cafe. And in a funny way, they can sometimes handle incidental noises better than active noise canceling, like how ANC with microphones that are scanning the sound around you, sometimes they can get a bit funky with typing. I have a really clacky keyboard. I like those sharp sounds off of my keyboard, and the microphones on some ANC systems don't know how to filter out incidental sharp noises. On some headphones, that can be a piercing artifact as the active canceling tries to weed out that sharp spike. You're not gonna get that with passive noise canceling on closed back cans, but I would be very careful with these headphones on a flight. I don't know that's the best fit for really loud engine sounds, especially if you get sat right by the engines. These will certainly block some of the noise in an airplane, but such a loud environment. I think a natural instinct would be to keep turning these up louder and louder to block the cabin noise around you. I made a video a while back about giving yourself a hearing test. Sit in a quiet room, set to a comfortable listening volume. Then when you go outside, if you turn up your headphones to block out noise in your environment, your ears will go numb to try and prevent discomfort. But congratulations, turning up above that comfortable listening volume, you're probably doing damage to your hearing. Just because it doesn't feel as loud when you're outside, that doesn't mean you aren't forcing more impact on your eardrums. So active noise canceling would definitely make this a better travel headphone for flights. But outside that, I really like what these can do, short of sitting right next to an airplane engine. And that's where I think it's kind of silly to hold this fake debate on price and quality. Is really great sound quality enough to justify the price tag? Yes! What a stupid question to ask. There is no one linear scale of headphone quality. These headphones are gooder and these headphones are badder. I'll give it a number score and then everyone should just buy the headphones that score perfect 10s out of 10. As soon as you trek above $100, in my opinion, it's not about a linear improvement to quality. I've got these cans right here. These are my One More headphones. I love them. When they first came out, they cost more than $100, and now you can find them on sale well below $100. Or a company like Soundcore. Great cans around and below $100. A good all-rounder travel headphone with great ANC and some decent thumping bass. Cake. So easy to find for under a C note. Once you start climbing above $100, we should start to have a conversation about specializing. AirPods Max are not 4 or 5 times better than a good Soundcore headset. They just aren't. But if there are features you really care about, you're gonna opt for the more expensive headphone. If there's a tuning quality that you care about, you're gonna opt for the more expensive headphone. I really like the way that planar drivers perform. That's really specific. I will pay more because I like a specific aspect of audio reproduction, and the loss of ANC is not a terrible compromise for the vast majority of situations that I might use these in. Plus, I'm also not bothered picking up a good travel headphone when I need that specific kind of ANC performance. Just in general, you might have noticed, I'm a big fan of right tool for the right job. I think most people should have 2 or 3 headphones instead of one singularly expensive headphone. But I digress. It's kind of like cars, right? When you're a dumb young kid, you say, I want a sports car and that's gonna go fast. And then you start driving more cars and maybe you like a straight 6 better than a V8. Maybe you kinda dig on the way a turbo spools up. I flippin' love how a rotary engine revs. Or maybe it's the suspension and the handling on one car, and that really does it for you, how it puts your butt on the ground, even though that car doesn't win in a quarter mile. With experience, you build taste. And that's why I think a premium headphone is fun to talk about. Edifier. This is not a flashy brand or some kind of marketing statement that appeals to your sense of fashion. This is a headphone for someone who has taste. You made a choice to pick this up. So I will, of course, leave a link down below if you would like more information on the Edifier Stax Spirit S5. I've really been enjoying my time with these. I'm thinking about doing a planar magnetic showdown, even considering the price differences between these two, a little more gamer focused, a little more audiophile focused. If you'd like to see that kind of conversation, drop me a comment on this video. And the first people who get to see the results of my testing on computer tech and audio tech are my amazing patrons. Over on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy, an incredible group of really fun geeks to hang out with. A huge thank you from the bottom of my heart that they are helping to keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab. I always greatly appreciate folks out there supporting their favorite YouTubers. If you're out sharing content across social media, that helps us with those evil, evil algorithms. But if you have the means, I hope you'll check out the community at patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere, but these days, I'm trying to spend a bit more time on the Mastodons, a lot less so on the Facebooks or the Instagrams, and definitely not on the Twitters, and I will catch you all on the next review.